Aloha, everyone. It's Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and this is episode 598. I'm Jyunmi, and I'm joined by Andy and Brian today, and hopefully we'll get Karl a little later. We're going to cover today's AI headlines. If we've got the time, we'll take a deeper look at how AI is helping scientists read a billion-year-old rock for signs of life, and maybe share a quick highlight of who crafts AI. But I imagine most of our time we'll be talking about the biggest news on the AIO sphere right now, which is Gemini 3. This is the Daily AI Show. So before we, dive deep into Gemini 3, I wanted to do a quick round robin of other news stories that you might have. Andy, do you want to lead us off here?
Yes, please. So today is Wednesday. And after the markets close today, NVIDIA is going to be announcing their third quarter earnings. And the entire market is really kind of poised to either kind of accelerate the softness of the market and the downturn that has been foretold, or people are going to be tremendously excited by the sort of the margin structure of NVIDIA and its prospect of having nearly $500 billion worth of backlog in book, sales of their chips for 2026. So the market will either go one way or the other, and it's all going to be as a result of that announcement. Now, we track these major players, and Microsoft and NVIDIA are, announcing today a new strategic partnership with Anthropic. Mm-hmm. So, I'm a big fan of Anthropic, and I think, they certainly deserve the investment that's being made in them by Microsoft and NVIDIA. Together, almost $15 billion being put by Microsoft and NVIDIA together with that AI startup, and pledging $30 billion in Azure cloud commitments as part of the deal. So NVIDIA is putting $10 billion in, Microsoft adding $5 billion to Anthropic at a valuation of $350 billion. So now Anthropic has a small fraction of the number of users that OpenAI does, and OpenAI is reputed to be valued at $500 billion. Well, in this scale, the difference between $350 billion and $500 billion is not that great, right? These numbers can kind of float around out there, but it's order of magnitude the very same kind of extremely high valuation for Anthropic. I think deservedly so. Analysts say Anthropic is doing a better job of managing costs and revenues in a way that it will reach profitability and positive cash flow much sooner than OpenAI will. So there's some justifications for all that. But I think it's very interesting that Anthropic has been supported by and is invested by Amazon for quite a while. So you can get Anthropic's models on Amazon's AI platforms. But now you'll also be able to get Anthropic in the Microsoft Azure cloud. And then NVIDIA is playing along here, and they're talking about developing new chips specifically optimized for Claude. And so really excited about that news, even alongside the huge splash that Gemini's made.
Right. Yeah. Anything that the chip making side of things, the infrastructure thing, always excites me. Brian, do you have a bit of news other than Gemini 3? Oh, I can't hear you. Sorry, you muted.
Sorry. I was just going to weave off of what Andy said on talking about Microsoft, because I actually learned about this from my good buddy Hannah, who puts out amazing sales content. I highly recommend her. I'll bring her up on screen here. And she was talking in her latest LinkedIn blog or newsletter, Microsoft just launched a sales development agent that can work 24/7. And of course, that caught my eye because I work in sales on the development side of sales. And so, this is something that potentially a lot of companies are going to be interested in, which is this a true, we will call it a BDR agent, business development representative agent? Can it, in fact, do all the things from solid lead generation to highly personalized outreach and so forth? Is it a true hands-off solution? Now, probably not. I always have my guard up when it's something that Microsoft is building because I feel like Microsoft just makes things unnecessarily complex. They're not the only ones, but you definitely get that feeling like when you're in a 365 solution, you have that feeling of, I feel like this could have been done with less code, as if people at Microsoft are getting paid by the line or something. You know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like we could have simplified this, but Microsoft kind of has their way and that's how they do things. So interesting to find out what they do. You can definitely, like I said, go onto LinkedIn and check out this article, which Hannah has a lot of great information. And it was a conversation with Julie Strauss, who's the VP of AI sales and marketing applications at Microsoft. So you're getting it from the source here. And then the other thing is, there's been a lot more from this Microsoft event that they've had. Microsoft's new AI agents create your Word, Excel, and PowerPoint projects now. So this is all things that you can kind of get it. You have to be in like a beta program, or you can get maybe early adopter to, and things like that. So not all of this, I didn't get the impression, has all reached the mainstream. What I did like that I read, and it's not something I can access, so it's just seeing it, was this concept that Microsoft said they released that's almost like an inbox, or if that's not a great word for it, it's like a command center for agents. And I thought, oh, there's a pain point that needs a solution, because what they basically were saying was, not only will it be able to see what agents are doing what, who's using those verified agents, it will also show you shadow agents, things that have been built by somebody else at your company, but perhaps is not on the approved list or is using old, outdated resource documents or something. And I thought, oh, that's needed. We're at a point now where people, and I love that Microsoft is already there, where they're thinking about this idea of a command system, because we're going to get into Gemini more later. But as I've saw in the last 24 hours, prompting and working alongside AI has changed. Gemini 3 is showing that. The prompting and everything else, we'll talk about it later. But I think this is the right way to think about this, because if I'm the worker, I need a way at different levels with different permission levels in a large organization to be able to say, well, here are the agents that I have access to. Here are agents that other people are using. Perhaps I'm blocked on these. I don't think that's anything different than what we would see on SharePoint or restricted access anywhere else. But the idea here being now is like, it's these agents. Now, again, I don't think these are agentic workflows. We've talked about that a lot. When the general sense, I'm guilty. I'm teaching a class right now and I use the term agents. We're talking about AI enabled workflows. So that might have one AI node, if you will, out of 10 in a workflow. We would still call that an agent by sort of today's terms. So that's what I believe they mean, is essentially a place to organize and manage all the AI workflows that are going around 365, and obviously embedded in with Copilot. That sounds phenomenal. I hope that's exactly what that is. Again, it's Microsoft, so I just kind of assume they'll over-engineer the hell out of it and they'll make it hard and horrible. But it's a great idea, So I'm rooting for them on this one, because I actually would love to see this in practice, and I'd love to see other big players start to think about this as well. So that's that was my big news. My big takeaway is there's a lot going on with Microsoft.
Gotcha. I only have other than Gemini, I only have a quick bit of news coming out of Alibaba. So Alibaba is making a fresh push into the consumer AI with a new Qwen chatbot app built on its most advanced large language model and launched as a free mobile and web assistant in China. Reuters reports that the app is billed as a personal AI assistant able to generate research reports and polished slide decks from a single command, and that an international version is planned. Now, until now, Alibaba's AI investments lean toward enterprise customers through its cloud division. This launch makes a strategic shift to compete head-on with consumer chatbots such as ByteDance's Daobao and DeepSeek's assistant, and Tencent's offering in a home market where usage numbers are already massive. So Qwen also effectively rebrands Alibaba's earlier Tongyi app, which never broke out. Tracking data cited its coverage shows that Tongyi is about 7 million monthly active users versus the 150 million for Daobao and other 70 million for DeepSeek. So the move comes amid what Chinese media describes as a brutal AI price war, triggered in part by DeepSeek's low-cost compute strategy. In that environment, Alibaba is not just launching a new app, it is betting that deeper integration with its browsers, e-commerce ecosystem, and cloud will turn Qwen into a stickier daily assistant. So what drew me to this particular story is, while it's not in line with all of the other AI stuff that's coming out in like the US, and we'll talk about Gemini 3, is that within the own ecosystem of the Chinese models, there seems to be this race to the bottom for costs and acquiring more and more users and creating that platform, that integrated platform. And we can see that's 100% what ChatGPT and OpenAI's campaign seems to be, or their business strategy. So it does seem that it's not just us, it's them too. So we'll see those international versions and see how they decide to release them as well, and see if they can compete with the mind share of ChatGPT. Okay, so I got this little intro for Gemini 3, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Brian, because I know you said you had some.
Wait. I just want to toss out a couple of small news items.
Oh, go for it. Sorry. Yeah. I'm just excited to get to Gemini 3. And I know
and loaded here before we move on to Gemini 3, because I know we'll spend the rest of the time on that. It's only 13 minutes in, so I think we got a couple minutes. And these are short. We've all been, we've done a full show segment on Poe, which is one of the model aggregators out there where you can, subscribe to Poe, and Poe gives you access to, they have 200 plus AI models on there, okay? A combination of open source and all the major models. And they just introduced a new group chat functionality that lets you and up to 200 users have a common meeting where you're interacting collectively with the AI model of your choice. And I don't fully understand the use cases for that yet. And I haven't tried it, but that's an interesting a sort of direction of development, right? Group chat is recently been added, I think, to one of the main platforms. And I haven't found, in my personal efforts here, a reason to use it. But this is another one, but with a very large number of people. That means like a conference scale Zoom meeting, in effect, can be hosted on Poe that would allow all those people to be in a common chat. I don't know how that gets organized, but anyway, I wanted to pass that on. And the other small thing is that Replit is one of the major vibe coding platforms. We haven't spoken about it much, but it is a major player out there, used by many, many enterprises, and by Google as well. I think internally in Google, before they launched anti-gravity, there was news that many, many Google developers internally were using Replit, and Google made an investment in Replit. Well, they launched a new feature called Design, which is a totally new UI for the important component of building a mini app, which is developing the beautiful website design that's going to be presented to the users. So imagine some combination of the skills of Canva being injected directly into the Replit vibe coding platform so that you work with that design feature and you're going to get a much better, more beautiful presentation UI than you would have otherwise. And it uses Gemini 3 to do that feature. So there you go. There's your intro to Gemini 3.
Well, it is interesting that Google has an investment in Replit. I wasn't aware of that because they're pushing out their own coding agents, right? And so,
as is everybody.
As is everybody.
I mean, LLMs can do that. So
right. So I'm just wondering what they're kind of seeing there. Okay. So as everybody knows, Google launched Gemini 3. It's its newest flagship AI model. And they wired it directly into Google search. Routers reports that Google is pitching Gemini 3 as the most intelligent model, emphasizing stronger reasoning, coding skills, plus better performance on key AI benchmarks, while also stressing that this release is already embedded into revenue generating products. A Google blog post says that Gemini 3 now powers an upgraded Gemini app, multimodal analysis, and a new generative UI in search that can build interactive layouts and even custom simulations on the fly, and not just text answers. For developers and enterprises, Google is pairing the model with Anti-Gravity, a new agent-based coding environment where AI agents plan, write, run, and debug code across an integrated editor, terminal, and browser. In context, this is Google's answers to a crowded field of so-called frontier models as it tries to stand out from OpenAI and Anthropic by shipping faster into everyday products instead of chasing leaderboard scores alone. And those are also very impressive. So, Brian, I know you got a chance to deep dive, do some use cases and demos. So tell us what you've seen in Gemini 3 so far.
Well, I would say first, what I want to point out is that we've seen new models, come and go. And this one feels different in the sense that there seems to be, for the people I follow, I'll say Matt Wolf he got early access. So he was able to put out a video with several weeks of several days, however long he had access, right? You see that a lot where they give it early access to influencers. They're able to drop their stuff immediately, which is great actually, because then it's like, oh, there's this new model and I can immediately turn and watch like a 30-minute YouTube video on 16 use cases. It's actually perfect. I love that they do that. Maybe someday one of us will be an early, will be the secret. We'll have the early access, but I do appreciate that they do that for others. So Nate Jones, Matt Wolf, and Ethan Mollick all had posts out very, very quickly on Gemini 3. And what I loved was, if you look at the benchmarks and stuff, they're all impressive. But I don't live and work in benchmarks. They don't really mean anything to me other than I can say, oh, well, I can see that it has met some newer math benchmark and whatever, right? It used tools, it didn't use tools. And that's all fine, well, and good. But it really is about the use cases. So naturally, yesterday, I would just say, after reading and reading the Substacks from Nate Jones and watching his videos and reading what Ethan Mollick put out and watching Matt Wolf's most of his video from yesterday, I didn't even get through it. I was really excited to see where and how far Gemini 3 could be pushed. And I've talked for like the last year, I would say. It's probably been a year, a little more, when mostly in ChatGPT, I had finally broken through with prompting because I was running into such horrible problems with trying to get prompts to be bigger. And I've referenced it as a master and router method because I don't have a better name for it. Okay. Very simply, it's one prompt that looks at other prompts that then spread out to more prompts. And those are usually in separate files. And that was a very nice workaround in ChatGPT on how to tell and confine the prompts to do what I want them to do for the custom GPTs. It's been successful and it continues to be successful. It's not like it's not now. I had previously always used that exact same format for gems. But it occurred to me as I was reading everything about Gemini 3 that perhaps I would be holding back Gemini 3, excuse me, by using this prompt and router method. Maybe this model was different, whereas others had felt like just, 5.1 is a little different than 5.0. And so I set out with Gemini 3 and gave it one of my most recent builds, which was hefty. It was had about 7 or 8 tasks in it, a master, a router, and it had 4 major knowledge documents. This was for a client. And Gemini 3 came back, looked at all of that, read it, understood it immediately, understood the broader goals of what it was intended to do. And then in no short term said, throw it all out. I'll create you one prompt and it'll do it better. And it wasn't like maybe. And also Gemini 3 referred to itself as we, not I. Weird. And it was like, we will fix this. And I was like, okay, will you? And so it went on its way to talk about how it was going to create, it called it a mega prompt. And I thought, yeah, that goes against everything I've learned. You don't build mega prompts. But Gemini 3 says, no. You can build mega prompts and I can follow it really well. I'll go one farther and tell you it's better than what you have because I don't have to waste time going and looking to see what prompt I need to run next. I have it all available to me and I can do forward looking and I can know what's coming, prepare for it and have better user experiences. And I was like, well, now you're flexing, right? So let's go. Well, it did. And there was some back and forth. There wasn't like, oh, this was not a one shot. There was some back and forth and some, okay, but what about this and that? And I think you went too far in this area, but we came to an agreement and I rebuilt. It's one prompt and 4 knowledge documents. Back to where we were 2 years ago. It's one prompt and 4 knowledge documents. That one prompt is 8,000 words long. It's massive. It would not fit in a normal context window. This wasn't even possible several months ago. And not only did it do a beautiful job, but it's fundamentally different prompting. It's no longer about here are the steps and tasks, at least for the way Gemini 3 works. It's more about what should you never do? What should you do? What are the rules of the road? Where do I need you to be at the end of this so you understand the big picture? What does great look like? And then go do your thing with thinking. And that's exactly what it does. It does not need me to define everything anymore because it says I'm smart enough to understand if you give me the guardrails, I'll just run and then effectively get out of my way. You're holding me back. And it was saying words like that back to me saying like, this is that. So I want to pull. So naturally I built with this quite a bit. And I want to show you guys some of the things that I built with it that have, it's just the start of this. I've only really been playing with this since yesterday. But let's just pull up the window because I think that'll be faster. There's no audio on this anyway, so that's fine. And here's some of the rules of the road. I'm just going to pull this up on the screen first because I want to share some of this. But here's some directives, if you will, for how prompting with Gemini 3 should work. And I'll go through a couple of them here. There's about 7. There's the prime directive rule. And by the way, this is all underneath the new title of objective-based commander intent prompts. That's what it calls it. Objective-based, which makes sense. It's just what I told you about, like having the objectives lined out. Commander's intent prompts. Okay. So then it says there's the prime directive rule. Every gem needs a single immutable goal that overrides all other instructions. This prevents the model from getting lost in subtasks or forgetting its primary purpose during long conversations. Okay. Then we have use phases instead of steps. I told you I would use steps in my multi because that's always been valuable to me. And it said phases, steps are brittle. If step 2 fails, the model breaks or it hallucinates momentum. Phases are states of being. The model stays in a phase until a specific exit criteria are met. And you can actually see it down here. It's giving you an example of saying like, here's the exit criteria. You have verified the user's budget and timeline. Okay. So it's coming in with a trigger still, which is stuff I was always doing, but it's also now got this exit criteria. There's a deep reasoning loop and it puts this in all the prompting now, which is really cool. So you can see it here, like it puts in a reasoning loop that says like, does this align with the uploaded knowledge file? Is the tone appropriate for the target intent? If I were a user, would I find this helpful or generic? And it says asterisk. If the answer is 3 is generic, rewrite it to be more specific. So we've seen this before with reasoning loops, but I actually find it to be really impressive that internally you have to dig into its thinking. You have to drill down the thinking tab and you can see it going through did this meet the requirements? After it is in memory written it before I'm seeing the results. It's running through its own reasoning, which is great. It's becoming its own editor before I even have to see it. Then we have source of truth hierarchy. So in a large context window, facts can conflict. For example, the user says X, but your file says Y. You must hard code the tie-breaking logic, which is great. You should do that. Like, look at a document when it's for this, because that's the truth. It doesn't matter what the website says. This is the truth. But then also go research this company. The website is the truth, maybe not a document I have, right? So you have to figure that out. Negative constraints, we've heard this before. Use specific negative rules, or never rules. Never use the word synergy. Never output a table. Use bullet points only. Never assume the user knows the acronym. Always define it first. It says that this is actually a more efficient way for models to run. I don't think this is unique to Gemini 3. I've seen this many times before. Use negative statements versus positive statements. So if you don't want M dashes, you would write never use M dashes, and you see what you can get. But that would be better than I don't know how you would say it. The positive side of that would be use commas, right, instead of M dashes or something. The quality gate. So the stop sequence, autonomous agents can hallucinate momentum, moving to the next step before the current one is truly done. I've actually seen this happen where it's jumping ahead and doing a bit of a, like in ChatGPT, it'll truncate and summarize and think it has the gist of it. And it really messes things up because it actually jumped over really important steps. So require the model to ask for explicit permission to advance phases, which I always agree with. It slows down the output, but I almost always see better results. And then you get this summary checklist of what this looks like. So what I did was I went ahead and built Brian's Gem Architect for Gemini 3. So
hey, Brian, can I interrupt you just to ask you to do one quick thing?
Yeah.
Will you show us the prompt that you use to generate that output, which is an instruction set on how to prompt? Because I'd love to reproduce that. And this is a feature that has been missing in most LLMs. If you ask it about its own capabilities, it doesn't really speak very knowledgeably about that in history, right? But this is impressive insofar as it's got what amounts to a built-in tutorial for how to work best with myself, right?
Yeah, it's its own cookbook. Right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
5.1 came out with a cookbook. It's its own cookbook. I would have to go back up in and I just hesitate to scroll higher because I cannot remember in here if I was working on a client work and I just want to be careful. But I will, like you can see here, it's give me some more guidelines or rules for creating gems using the objective-based commander's intent prompting. So that would probably be okay using those terms.
Was the term objective-based commander's intent prompting something that you learned first in this dialogue with? Okay.
Yeah. It said this is
probably
what
in
the future
documentation somewhere, but typically when you want to find out how best to work with one of the models, you have to go to one of those help documents that have been posted by the developers, right? But here it's all built in. I really love that.
Yeah, it was really easy to work back and forth. And like I said, there was a lot of discussion in here. I'm showing you guys obviously just the sort of key features here. And then what I essentially did was I said, okay, well, I've done this for the ChatGPT before. Let's build a gem to build gems, right? Let's take all these rules and all these guardrails and all these guidelines and all the nevers and all the this and that and everything you just said, but let's do it to help users build more gems. So then what I did was I created back and forth, took me a little while to do. I got finally a full prompt for this gem. And then once you have that, you're off to the races because now this gem knows everything about how to write great prompting for Gemini 3. So you no longer have to figure out the prompting. You just have to work with this gem. And so what I do is you'll see here. Okay, let's start. Okay, so I'll just start it there just so you can see what it is. And I've not hard coded any trigger language, but it should come back here unless it breaks or something like that. It should come back here and say to start working with me on it. It says, welcome to the Architect Studio. I'm ready to engineer your agentic gem for the Gemini 3 era. We're initiating the Omni build protocol. My guide is to build a system that is not just responsive, but rigorously aligned with your commander's intent. Phase 1, the identity matrix. So then it wants to know the architect core logic. I need to map the boundaries of this gem's existence. We do not write a single line of instruction until we lock down these 3 pillars. the prime directive, which is the victory condition, the truth topology, the data boundaries, and the canvas check modality, because is this going to be multimodal? What do we want this gem to eventually do? So what I do is I just turn on my mic here and I just answer all of this. And then it goes next step. And then the final step, it built in, and it was Gemini's idea, is it built in a fourth step of this, which is red teaming. So not only can you build it, but you can test it in the build phase, in the sandbox. That's cool. I cannot do that. By the way, I took this prompting for that I built, because I remember telling you I recreated one of my clients' ones that was a custom GPT. I took the exact same prompting, and what did I do? I went back over to custom GPTs and 5.1, and I said, does it work retroactively? Will it go backwards? And it did not. It broke. It could, 5.1 could not handle that prompt of that size and that magnitude the way Gemini did. It fundamentally did not work. In fact, I would only now build gems using this method, and I would use ChatGPT's building the prompt and router. Because like I said, it never broke. It still works. But Gemini 3 legit wants something different, and you've got to move with the times, right? So this is the way this works. So then what I did was from that gem builder, the gem architect, I built the DOS page builder gem, okay? Using gems to build gems, like speeding ourselves up here. And this all happened basically this morning, okay? And then I said, okay, well, what I want to be able to do with this DOS page builder is I want to give it a transcript. Then I want it to read the transcript and say, well, you guys covered a couple different topics. Like on this show, we just covered a couple news stories, but we are also covering Gemini 3 the most. I wanted it to come back to me and say, look, in this show that you guys did, you got about 3 options here. Which route do you want me to go down? And then you pick one, or you come back, you pick 2, and then you pick 3, right? You can do all of them. And then what it outputs once it goes through that whole process of working with me or one of the Daily I Show team members like you guys, is it just goes through the process and basically asks questions about what it is that you're trying to achieve here. And then it produces an HTML file that you can just save and download on your computer or put on WordPress or whatever your websites are. And then what you get are things like this, which I thought was pretty cool. So this one is a Daily AI Show deep dive from this month, the era of physical AI beyond the language. And so the chatbot era is ending. The world model era has begun. We explore the rise of Project Prometheus, NVIDIA Apollo, and the shift from generative to text to spatial intelligence. Guess what? That's what Andy talked about yesterday, right? So here's some of the information that it pulled in. And it's talking about Prometheus here. And we have a little bit of movement on the screen, right? And then we have the architect shift here. And then it gives us some more information here. By the way, I think these can be better, but this is where we are today. Here's the agentic breach, analyzing the first reported AI orchestrated cyber espionage campaign by state-sponsored actors. So it gives you the incident here, talking about what happened with Anthropic. You can actually see here, there's cited sources in here. So if we click on those at the very bottom, it's taking you to places like Anthropic for their news story. It breaks this down. This particular page, I also had optimized for a general engine optimization, generative AI engine optimization. So it's more about snippets. And you can see here, like the host mentioned asking IT. I wouldn't have it do that. I don't like when it says the host, because it's like if you're looking at this page, you don't necessarily know it was a conversation. It's not the point of the page, right? The point of the page is different. So a little more detail. Here's a third one, the portfolio first era, because on Friday I talked about, going and I sat on a panel, and on the show, we just had an open conversation about, they were asking like, well, do degrees matter? Like not that life and death, but sort of like degrees matter in the sense of having skills. And we had a whole conversation about it. And so this was one of the options that came back from that show. It wasn't the only thing we talked about. And then it came back and built this page. So
let me ask a question about that. So
sure.
There is a canvas in Gemini 3 and Gemini that building on. Did it present this on the canvas first before delivering a downloadable HTML?
No, and I did ask for that because I thought the same thing. Shouldn't I just be able to preview this with the little play button in Canvas? Because I've certainly done that plenty of times. And it seemed to be getting confused on that idea. I know it's clearly possible. I have another build that I was doing this morning for a client, and it seemed to be getting confused on when it would give me an export to Sheets and then do the whole thing like, well, I can't access your Google your Google Drive, so I can't do that for you. And I'm like, you can. You've always made an export to sheets function outside of Canvas in a sheet, and so it was hit or miss with that. But I agree with you, Andy. I should not have had to have downloaded the HTML and then popped it open in Chrome, which is what I did, which is fine. That works just fine. I should have been able to preview it live in Canvas, because you can do that. I know you can do that. So I'm not sure where I went wrong with the instructions, but perhaps on the back end of this. Oh, and here you go. Here's the DOS page builder just to show you it running. Right? Discovery menu. Here was option A, option B, option C. I said, please reply. It said, please reply. I said option A, that's the Cloud Code espionage page I just showed you. Then it says, okay, I've constructed your deep dive. And then it literally creates this HTML right here. But I agree. That should be in Canvas. I probably have to go back to the prompting a little bit. And then it gave me this video that it felt was relevant to it. And then I was like, okay, let's do option C now. And then you can see it created everything for option C. So things that I would improve upon.
Is Canvas in the tools selector down there?
No, I guess I don't. But it should call Canvas on its own, because I've built other gems that call Canvas.
It should, but I wonder if you have to invoke it there.
It's a good question. I mean, if I go here and I go Canvas, I can let this run. Can you make this last one a preview in Canvas? Canvas. So we'll let that run, and we'll see if that comes back to it or whatever. So I didn't want to monopolize more time, but all this to say, I know I've just dipped my toe in the water. I know there's a lot more here, but what I can tell you that I feel very confident about is the way that you would prompt optimally for Gemini 3 is fundamentally different than anything I have learned or taught or experienced up to this point. And I think that's a big deal, because like I said, it does not retroactively work back in ChatGPT. ChatGPT just, as I would have suspected, just could not handle that large prompt. It struggled.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I think what it really highlights is that Gemini 3 really takes advantage and is aware of its entire context window, right? It's that million tokens.
2 million.
Right? Oh, is it at 2 million?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a huge leap, because that's always been an issue. You could have a huge context window, but it was how much of it is it going to remember? How much of it is it going to recognize? And that seems like a perfect use case to show off that lack of a better term right now, memory of its entire context. Not to mention that it's 2 million tokens versus was it 400,000 or something like that for GPT 5.1?
Maybe yeah. I'm just thinking about modems.
I think it's 200,000 for the.
Oh, is it 200,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys have a history? Do you guys do that too? Do you default to terms like 512 and 256 because of old modem speeds?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do that all the time. I do that, and this is really geeky, but I also do that with coefficients of drag that I had to learn and commit to memory as a firefighter. Those numbers come up a lot too, but I will default to 256 or 512 or 1.44. Where that no kids today would have any reference point to what the hell that means, Right. So it's just, anyway, that's side topic, side thing there.
So Brian, Did you also get to try anti-gravity, or was that Karl who was saying he was trying anti-gravity out?
That was Karl, and then he had originally said I tried it, but then it kind of broke immediately. But I think there was a literal volume issue of people trying to get access to it. No, I didn't even touch it, mainly because this goes back to you and me, Jyunmi, talking about this a long time ago. Oh, partition a drive, and I just think if you're going to mess with anti-gravity, you probably should have a old computer that you're cool with all the files on. It's just an old computer, and try it there, or disconnect from the internet, or partition a drive. I'm just not at a point where I feel comfortable with go at it, see what you can do, anti-gravity.
Drive in my root folder. Yeah.
Just help me damn. Let's just see what happens. I'm not willing to roll the dice like that.
I downloaded anti-gravity this morning.
Did you?
Oh, okay. I'm happy to say that unlike other programs that you download to your desktop, machine, Google made this available to even older versions of Mac OS. So I'm on Ventura with a 2017 iMac, which I still enjoy, the 5K screen and 40 gigabytes of memory. And I'm able to use anti-gravity on this. I have it open on my desktop right now. I haven't played with it yet, but I look forward to using it and seeing if I can replicate the work that I've done previously, using Lovable, but doing it all within the Google platform. So instead of Supabase, use Firebase. All of those things ought to be accessible to that anti-gravity platform. But, that's a question of time. I wanted to share, if I can, AI Studio and show people who, can also go to, Gemini.google.com and play with Gemini 3. But AI Studio has, for me, always been this wonderful space, which is a playground. But when I came to AI Studio this time around, it didn't have anything like a playground. It didn't have any of my history. And it took me about 30 minutes of exploration with Gemini to find out that there are ways to access your history of interaction with Google apps. And it turned out that all of that was being stored to my Google Drive. So all of the history that I had done with Gemini 2.5 Pro in a very different UI than currently presents at aistudio.google.com was all there, and I could recover it. Well, so this is what you'll see if you go to aistudio.google.com. You'll get this extension that you see up here is /apps with an S, plural, right? Well, I discovered that. Now I'm switching over to the playground. The playground still exists, though you really can't find it easily unless you do the kind of sleuthing that I did. And notice that this is aistudio.google.com/apps/prompts/new_chat. And this presents you also with Gemini 3 Pro Preview. But here's the playground with all of the work that I had done previously. And I can view all of that history. I can click on any one of these, and it brings back up the familiar UI of AI Studio, in which I was using 2.5 Pro as a coding assistant while working with Lovable. And I've talked about that on the show before. But I just wanted to show that the Google system is really very complete and comprehensive and complex. And you just need to spend some time in it. And AI Studio is one of those places you can do it. I don't know if you can get to the playground easily, but this is the one that you'll find. And it's focused now, as you see, on building an application. Supercharge your apps with AI. And it gives you all these things. By the way, there are, if you look over here in advanced settings, you can select Gemini 2.5 Pro and work with that, or 2.5 Flash. And by the way, 2.5 Flash, when you snoop around here in AI Studio, you'll find out that they have some very, very inexpensive and sophisticated voice interaction capabilities. And that's kind of the direction that most application development should be going, enabling voice interaction with the application. And Gemini has that built right into this platform. All right. That was mine.
So just a point of clarity, Brian, you weren't using AI Studio for your initial prompt development, right? You go directly into the Gemini interface or the Gemini.google, right?
This is just Gemini. You can see it at the top there. It's just gemini.google.com. I am using it on my, you can see it in the upper right. I'm using it on my scaled account, which gives me a lot more access, I think, to Gemini 3 thinking. So I don't think if I was doing this on my basic, Gmail side of things, that I would have been able to get as far. Perhaps I kind of half expected, honestly. I was doing so much with it last night and this morning. I did half expect it to time me out, kind of like a la Claude. And it just didn't. It just kept crushing one after the other. I did want to show this on the back end. This is the back end of the Gem architect for the, for the 3. don't need to gatekeep this. I'm more than happy to share this with everybody. It's literally this prompt, but what I wanted to show you more than just showing you like everything in the prompt, because I can do that in the community. I want to show you there's no knowledge. It quite literally is one prompt that handles all of this. And if it's all the areas, here's your prime directive, here's your role definition, this is what you do. Remember, it's like it has to have one main task. What is this for? And I love that. Get clear on what it is we're trying to solve for. I can't tell you how many times I have these conversations with my clients, which is you're still ambiguous. You're still unsure yourself. And I cannot build you a perfect solution with AI if I don't understand what the end goal is supposed to look like. And oftentimes the client doesn't know either. And that causes stress and strain because it brings up uneasy feelings with the client of, we should know this. It's our business, but we don't. And now it's being brought to us and said, I can't move forward because you don't know what the end goal looks like. And so a lot of times we have to slow down and we have to figure that out. I mean, there's been several clients of mine where 2-3 weeks has to go by where they go off and they figure their stuff out. And then they come back to me and they go, Brian, I'm clear now on what it is I'm trying to accomplish. Great. Now we can talk about building an AI solution. So I will share this. I'll make this this pledge. I will share this entire prompt for the Gem Architect Builder on there so that you can iterate on it. I will also just literally share the builder with everybody. So you should be able to do it directly from the link if you don't want to iterate. But I think you want to get dirty with it, right? You want to take the prompting and you want to make it better. You know, maybe you'll come back to me or whatever, and I'm totally fine with that. And then the other thing I was going to say really quick, where did it go? Yes, Andy, once I asked for the canvas and the thing, in fact, I did get this. So somewhere in that prompting, this needs to happen automatically, and this should be the obvious next step, and it's not. So I just have to get more clear about this being created because, the only funny thing is it created it differently than what's in the HTML. Because remember, this was on the left side.
Right.
I
wonder if they actually built it as a dynamic coding so that it adjusts by how much pixels you have. But I mean, cool. That'll be definitely something to explore. Now, what'll be interesting, I think, is building that workflow or building this into that workflow. And I think having these pages built out for each episode would be a great goal.
Well, one of my criteria was that this has to be able to be picked up by AI and automatically done. Now, we don't currently have it, but like if we just had a simple website, WordPress or other website, when we go to recreate ours, and as long as that API access, I think honestly, whatever our next daily iShow website builder should be one with the most robust API access. Because what you really want to say is, I don't want to create any of the pages. I want AI to create all the pages and optimize. And then with a solution like this, I wouldn't build this as a gem. I'd build this as a agent looking at Gemini 3.0, I would assume, using the API. Right. But the output of this maybe has a human in the loop, maybe has a quick preview, make sure you like it. But the very next step is make it live, send it. You know, you have the right SEO tags in there and whatever it needs to have for general, optimization, send it.
So I want to thank you for making that gem builder accessible to the community. I know that a lot of people in the chat have said, hey, how do I get that? Yeah. And I wanted to ask a question about why you didn't include the commander intent, instruction set that it outputted it that you were showing originally as a knowledge document, or was that incorporated into the long prompt already?
Yep. It would push back on me, and I'd be like, are we sure we don't want to make this another document, that you go look at? And it's like, why? It also said to me, and again, it would say we more than I, which is weirdly off-putting. But it would say, we got this, right? And it was very nonchalant about like, I'm not bothered by this big task that you keep saying is a big task. Like, I don't think it's a big task. I was like, all right. So then it comes back to me and we're having a conversation back and forth. And I was like, look, Jimmy, you need to go bigger. We need to knock the doors off this thing. We need to go bigger. Go back and look at that prompt to go bigger. And it came back to me and said, all right, you want to kick the doors in? Let's kick the doors in. Here we go. I just thought, I even like his personality. Like, I don't know if it was mimicking me or what it was doing, but I just like a prompt that comes back that's like, okay, Brian, no BS. You want to kick some doors in? Let's get on our S kickers and do some. It's like, I'm here for it. Let's go.
Another question about your account with Gemini.google.com. Are you in a paid account for that? Or was that just the free version of Gemini.google.com?
No, this would be whatever it is through Scaled. So not individually paid, but Scaled is a Google
workspace owner. Yeah.
I've always had better availability because of that. So when I can't get something done, I will typically, Notebook LM, for instance, is better on the paid side, just slightly, but it is. So I will always run those through the Scaled account stuff. Yeah. If I ever was not
curious
Scaled,
about whether you had memory, because you said, I wonder if it was imitating me, and it might well have been, changing its dialogue, the sort of the voice as a result of knowing you. And in the paid account, that's probably true, probably less although there might be some memory in the free account.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Very impressive. That's all. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah, no, I was just commenting that I'd love to see a comparison of Gemini, the Gemini app, essentially, versus the AI Studio, and what are the benefits of one over the other? Because I don't think I've seen a side-by-side comparison of that. Because I know with AI Studio, you're supposed to be you're messing with the back end and the guts. Can you build out stuff a certain way with the AI Studio over the Gemini app? And is the Gemini app giving you access, that interface, like working within ChatGPT or working within OpenAI's Playground? Is it that kind of comparison? So
I would say this, that the UI of Google AI Studio includes a menu item for your apps. So you can in effect create a project within AI Studio that builds an application. Like you built a gem, which is a different platform basically. Sure. But you could build an application that does something very similar to what Brian just did, using the same prompt, right? But you would have an application that could actually be mounted and, posted to the web, basically published to the web in AI Studio. I think that's the main distinction that I would make, is that you have projects and applications that are going to be in a library in AI Studio. Its focus being to build applications, whereas in Gemini.google.com, you have Canvas, which will present something very sophisticated, including very great visualizations, because Gemini 3 is it's probably the leading multimodal model out there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Not just best reasoning, but also native audio, native video. It does all those things, and it can generate infographics right in the Canvas or give you an HTML version of it. But if you wanted to make that part of an application, you'd probably shift over from Gemini.google.com over to Google AI Studio.
Yeah, and that's not it. We haven't even scratched the surface. It was like, to your point, Ethan Mollick in his post, go read his blog post on it. He gave it like old research, not the old research papers, but old research that he had done on a particular topic, I can't remember, and fed that back in and said that he felt, while not perfect, and again, he would have a high standard being an educator himself and a longstanding professor, but he said, is it PhD level? I don't know, but it's like PhD student level, because the answers it gave back were pretty phenomenal. It was a little too constrained here. It didn't go far enough down this thing. But he said what I would agree with was, but I feel like I'm paraphrasing, but I feel like that's less about the constraints of the model. I'm more about the back and forth nuances of working with the model. And that, to me, if I could leave one thing today, that is the clear difference to me. Every other model I've worked with up until this point, it has felt very much like, I will tell you what I want you to do. You stay in these rules and guidelines, and we will work together. And I've given you the roadmap, and I need you to be AI where I need you to be AI. Gemini 3 has a much more sitting beside you type feel to it. Hey, this is what I want to do. Let's work together to build that.
Mhm.
And so it's just felt different. That's all I can really say about it. And, hopefully other people play around with it and find out. I do, Jimmy, before you start wrapping things up, want to bring this up because people are asking in the comments, hey, how would I get into that community that you just said you're going to post that prompt in? Good question. So the way you're going to get to that is going to the dailyaishowcommunity.com. The dailyaishowcommunity.com. It will take you to this page where you will see what the Daily AI Show Community Hub is up to with a whole bunch of people on it, and you can sign up from there. So it redirects to this. That's not what this actual URL is. Otherwise, I'd share it, but it will redirect right to this page, and away you go. So that will get you into the community. At some point today, I will post that prompt, and I'll make it known that it's in there. And that way you guys can go get it. You can play with it. I will also post a shareable link to that gem in case you just want to play with the gem builder. So either way you want to mess around. If you just want to go build gems, just go use the gem builder, the architect, and go build them. If you want to see if you can make the prompt even better, hey, go for it. Let me know what you find out. So just wanted to share that really quick.
Awesome, exciting stuff. So as we wrap up today, I wanted to highlight something from Gareth saying that he's building a automatic Lego builder in both Studio and in Anti-Gravity. So Gareth, love to see your process. So please please show us how that works out, and run us through that. I think that pretty much wraps up for today. So I want to thank you to everyone in chat and everyone watching a little later. If you want to keep the discussion going, like Brian said, join our Slack community. If you thought this was helpful, please consider subscribing so you don't miss the next episode. And we'll see you next time. Aloha.